Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play the Misadventures of Tron, Bonne. In the last part we started off the game and got ourselves a good amount of money just from the first two missions, and now we're going to check out the latter two types of missions, one of which is really good, the other one is very tedious, for secondary playthroughs in particular, because we're going to be going after the mission on the top of the menu, which is the RPG type, quote-unquote. The goal of this mission is to find legendary Aurora Stones in the ruins. Now, when you think RPG, you immediately go to something like Pokemon or Final Fantasy. This isn't that at all, really. We're going to go on a dig in the Shalakun ruins, looking for the Aurora Stones. Dig? Ruins? You mean like underground, Miss Tron? That's right. It's as big as a city, all underground. According to the information our scout brought back, there's all sorts of traps over the ruins, so we'll have to be extra careful. Yes, Miss Tron. We'll be careful and stay close to you. No, you won't. I'm staying here. We'll take advantage of the other diggers there and get the treasure before them. People will trust you more because of your looks. That's why you're going, and I'm not. Yes, Miss Tron. Do you think it's safe? I'm scared of caves. I'm afraid of the dark. But since I'm worried about you going alone, I'll be monitoring you using the mini-robot Finkel. I'll tell you what to do using it. All I have to do is follow the beacon bombs, okay? And no goofing off. Yes, Miss Tron. It's really important on this mission to listen to what people say. If you do, it'll be easier to solve traps and puzzles. Are you ready to go? Ready, Miss Tron. And this is our new little robot. For this mission, we'll be using the mini-robot Finkel. It's operated basically the same way as the Gustav, except it has no weapons. As the servbots will be the ones doing the actual work, you'll need to watch them. Use beacon bombs to get them to talk with people or explore rooms to get items. Miss Tron will explain the other rules for this mission once we get to the ruins. And as for the servbots you're going to want to bring into here, you're going to be bringing in only 3 servbots compared to the cargo operations 1 or any standard Gustav missions 6. So make sure you choose the ones you want to gain some brain, and yeah, there's no real order for what I'm doing with these particular servbots. I just want to get them some more brains at this point.
All right, let's go get that treasure. Miss Tron, how are we supposed to get it? What's it dig out? Well, first you'll have to talk to a digger and get some information. Information, right. Okay then, follow me. I'll use the Finkel to show you where to go. The Finkel is basically controlled the same way as the Gustav. If you press the square button while holding down the R2 button, you can fire a beacon bomb. If you press just the square button, you can make the Finkel ram something. If you fire a beacon bomb, you want us to go check out whatever you fired it at, right? That's right. And if there's a person there, talk to him or her. I thought we weren't supposed to talk to strangers. Don't worry. I'll be right there with you. The Finkel can make a funny sound if you press the triangle button, which will get people's attention. All right, Miss Tron. We'll do our best. Okay, do you understand everything? Here we go. Roger!
So in this particular playstyle, you're just kind of moving around the Finkel like it's a Gustav in a first-person perspective, beacon bombing anything that's of real interest to the servbots.
Look, there's a digger! Why don't you go talk to him? Okay.
Shoot someone to talk to them, like real life.
Hello there, Mr. Digger. It's nice weather we're having, isn't it?
Huh? Are you fellas diggers too?
Yeah! We're here looking for treasure.
Treasure? You mean the Aurora Stones? You won't find any here. You'll have to go deeper into the caves.
Ooh! Do you know where they are?
Not really, but I do know that there's supposed to be 3 stones here. Say, want to come along with me? We can look for them together.
Just a second. Miss Tron? He doesn't
to meet you.
We're servbots. Nice to meet you.
Also, every NPC that you meet has extra dialogue if you beacon bomb them further.
I get so excited whenever I think about dig-outs. Don't you? I've heard stories that a lot of people are looking for the stones. Nothing like a little competition. These caves have only recently been discovered. Who knows what we might run into here?
Most of the NPCs you run into only have 3 extra dialogue, though, beyond their initial one. And whenever you see suspicious-looking things or treasure chests, beacon bomb them as well, like this wall.
Miss Tron, it looks like there was a cave in here. You're right. We need something that can drill a hole if we want to keep going on.
A cave-in, huh? I've got just the thing. This, my ultra dynamite. If we use this...
What? Dynamite? Is he crazy? He'll bring the whole cave down on top of us. Wait! Stop! Don't!
Huh? Why? My ultra dynamite's pretty amazing stuff.
Let's leave for now. I'll make a drilling machine and we can come back later, all right? Let's come back later, all right, Mr. Dance?
All right, if you say so. I really wanted to use my dynamite.
Come on, practice some safety, Dance. Despite what you might think, we can't leave our friends behind. And what you've seen thus far is more or less what this entire gameplay style is. A lot of investigating stuff and a lot of dialogue.
Huh? It's empty.
Someone must have gotten here and opened it before us.
Does that mean there's no treasure left anywhere?
Not necessarily. Not all treasure boxes are this easy to open. Some treasure boxes are locked, which means you can't open them without the key.
A key, huh? But that means we have to find the key first. This is starting to sound pretty hard. Do you think we can read it to it?
Don't worry, I'm with you, remember? Come on, let's keep moving.
Yes, Mr. Dance.
Due to the fact that most of these missions is just dialogue and me exploring around the exact same set patterns every time, because this is like set patterns, it's not random, these missions are fun on the first playthrough because you get to see the servbots be adorable, but on repeat playthroughs, they're really tedious. Also, be careful of stalactites and various traps around. We're going to get more on that right about now.
Miss Tron, we can't go any further. There's something really painful looking in the way. It's a trap. There's probably plenty of them down here.
It's a trap. If you can't get past this, then you're not worthy of being called a digger. Traps like these usually have an off switch somewhere around them.
A switch? Where?
Let's see. Switch. There it is. If we push that blue switch, the trap should stop. Just you watch. This is a nasty trap. Say, maybe you should push the switch instead. Yeah, that's it. Why don't you try?
I knew he was no good. I guess it's up to you guys then. Yes, Miss Tron. Listen carefully. I'll shoot a beacon bomb over there. You go push the switch, all right? But Miss Tron, what happens if we get hit by the big ball? Don't worry, I'll time it just right so that you won't. But if I don't, well... But if you don't? Well, we'll see what happens. Don't worry, it won't hurt that much. But Miss Tron! Quiet! Stop your whining! Do you understand what you have to do? Yes, Miss Tron.
Whenever you see a switch, beacon bomb it. Don't worry about the servbots, they're absolutely invincible. They'll still feel immense pain, but they're invincible.
Good job! Now we can get through! Thank you, Miss Tron!
Way to go! You did it! Now you know how to deal with traps, right?
This is going to be a long day.
It's rough, because on a fresh playthrough, these are interesting missions, but they can just go on for a while, because this is the first half of the part, by the way. There's interesting dialogue and some fun characters, but the only really interesting parts of each of these missions is the end of them to me, as the boss fights that await you at the end of each one are admittedly kind of fun due to the different control scheme.
Miss Tron, we found 800 Zenny! We're rich! Well, it's good you found some money. Keep it up. We need to get all the money we can. Yes, Miss Tron.
Since this is a much more, not strategic, but less action-based gameplay style, the few boss fights there are end up being really interesting just due to how little you can do. Because you either have to use these servbots as an actual damage source rather than a distraction, or use them as bait otherwise, or use the Finkel's otherwise very minor abilities, which are a sound with the triangle button, or you can slam forward with the square button. And notably, the square button can also be used to crack open certain barrels to get Zenny, but be careful though, because not every barrel is safe. Some of them are actually traps that explode once they break finally. Also, if you run out of HP, it's game over, as you'd expect.
Whoa, wait! It's a fire trap!
Fire!
Yep, if you're not careful, you'll be burned to a crisp.
I see. Well, what should we do?
Well, this trap should also have a switch that deactivates it somewhere.
So all we have to do is find it and push it, right?
That's right. But what are you standing around for? Let's look for that switch.
Yes, sir! Find the switch!
More often than not, the switches for traps are just around a corner or within relatively easy sight. They're seldom going to be hard for you to find. Just be careful because the Finkel can't take too much punishment. Oh, that poor servbot.
That takes care of that. Good job, boys!
Looks like you found it. Way to go, fellas. I knew you'd make good diggers.
They make good diggers, but I wonder about him.
Also, you may have noticed, this mission's a bit odd in that you actually get to see both the English localization for and the Japanese version of the terms from the Legend series. For instance, Dance earlier called digs dig-outs, which is part of the Japanese term for diggers, which is dig-outers.
Hey, what's this?
That's a card key for a treasure box. Good job. This means you can open locked treasure boxes now.
Really? Yay! That sounds like fun! Yay! Listen to me. That's really important. Don't lose it, all right? Yes, Miss Tron. We'll take good care of it.
I'm actually quite a fan of the term dig out, because it actually sounds like a real event as opposed to just calling what we're doing digging. But dig outer just does sound kind of awkward in English. It's also part of the Japanese name for the Legend series, which is Rockman Dash, Dig Outers Adventures in Halcyon Days.
Miss Tron, look! It's a treasure box! Can we use the card key to open it? Alright, here we go! Miss Tron, look at what was inside! An E-bottle, number 1! Great! I can use it to recharge the Finkel's energy! Take good care of it! Yes, Miss Tron!
There's usually, from my memory, enough treasure chest keys to open up the blocked treasure chests. And you do want to go for most of them, because some of them contain progression items, but some of them do contain health items like that are going to help you out in other areas. Especially the energy bottles, as they're essentially the one-use health items, if I didn't mention that last part. And especially in the next mission I'm doing, they can be pretty helpful.
Hello there.
Huh? Don't bother me. I'm trying to disarm this trap and I'm not in a good mood right now.
Trap? What kind of trap?
It's up ahead. You get close and rocks start to fall from the ceiling. You can't get through.
Why don't you push the switch? That's how you turn traps off.
Huh? I know that. What do you think I am? Some kind of idiot? You trying to pick a fight or something?
No, we're sorry. Boy, she's got a temper. Better be careful and stay on her good side.
I know the switch is around here somewhere, but I can't get close to it because of the trap.
Sounds like you've got a problem.
That's what I've been trying to tell you. Go on. Leave me alone.
Yes, ma'am.
Whenever you see a trap like this, my best advice is to just take your time. Don't rush too much forward with the Finkel. Try and just slowly approach things if you see them threatening you, and you should be fine more times than not, at least. Oh, those poor things. I love the animations for the servbots in these missions. They're the best parts about them, honestly. Also, I'd usually be silent for something like this, but the dialogue for getting a card key is essentially going to be the same each time moving forward, barring Dance's explanation. So, the rare voiced cutscene I'll be talking over in any of my LPs. Unless I eventually get to Metal Gear Solid 4, in which case, yeah, that game is like, what, 9 hours of cutscenes? That's, I'm going to be talking over a lot of those, or at least giving my thoughts on them as they go.
What's that? You say you cleared the trap? Well, what was on the other side?
A card key for a treasure box.
A card key? So, that's what they was hiding. These lads be pretty good diggers, eh?
No, not really. We'll give you this if you want it.
Huh? What? What? What do you think you're doing? You can't give that away!
I'm just kidding. Sorry. We can't give this to you.
Huh? You lads be a little strange. Well, don't matter. I'll get the next one.
I'll get it next time.
My name's Ma. I'll get the next treasure myself, just you see. Gotta keep working. I'm not the only digger down here in this cave, you know. Traps here are a little tougher than I expected. My name's...
More often than not in this first mission, I did forget that every single digger only has about 3 lines of dialogue after the initial dialogue, so I do talk to them for a 4th time accidentally, each time. Also notable, Maud has different dialogue if you get this chest before talking to her. And I didn't show it off just because I didn't want to play through this boring mission again, but if you're playing along, you can see that right now.
Right, here we go. There was another key, I think, inside.
Hey, that's a room key. You can use it to open locked doors.
Really? You mean it's important? Of course it's important. You better not lose it, or you'll all be in a lot of trouble. Yes, Miss Tron.
If I'm recalling correctly, I think Maud's other dialogue, if you get the room key first, is that you tell her you got the key and it led to a chest that contained this, and she's like, oh dang, well good find, guys, and then you move on with your day. With that said, I actually do really like the atmosphere of these missions. I find the cave aesthetics really nice looking, especially for this era PlayStation. This looks great. Except for the little mid-area teleports like that, but that's just because they probably couldn't render all these polygons at once for the whole cave, which, you know what? I can't blame them. Don't smack this next barrel too many times, by the way, as this is our first trap barrel, so after the first few Zenny pop out, kaboom, and you take damage, and that's no good.
Yay! Look, there's some writing here.
Whoa! This is one of Uncle Dig's tips. There's this really old, really famous digger named Dig, see? He writes messages for other diggers whenever he's exploring, to help them out.
So, what's it say? What does it say?
Let's take a look. Let's see. Uncle Dig's tips.
In these caves, it appears there is another treasure besides the Aurora Stones. It's called the Elixir of Youth. There's very little data, but it has something to do with collecting 3 kinds of crystals. And one of those crystals is in this room.
Elixir of youth? What's that supposed to be?
This is incredible. He must be talking about the secret of eternal youth. There's the crystal.
What should we do, Miss Tron? Well, we might as well pick one up and take it back with us. All right, we'll get one.
I got one too. Wow, the elixir of youth. I have to find the other 2 crystals.
Something tells me he'll need our help. Oh well, come on, let's go. Yes, Miss Tron.
If I recall, that's largely the only really optional bit of this entire side of quests, bit of missions, is that you can get those little dialogues for an extra reward later on. Also, we have a new type of Reaverbot here. These are, I think, Fritos. They'll try to home in on you when their light's red, but when it's blue, you can bonk into them to damage them. A couple of those and they're dead. However, a lot of Reaverbots in these areas can just be straight up avoided like that. So, not even really a threat. Oh well, it's not Legends 2 anymore.
Hey! What's happening? What is this? Miss Tron, are you alright? I'm fine, but I can't move any further unless we do something about this. Wait a minute. There's a switch over there. I bet if it's pushed, this trap will deactivate.
Now, this trap is odd because it actually makes you move left and right automatically, so you just need to make sure you time your beacon bomb press correctly. It's surprisingly annoying. Come on, you can get it. Come on, come on, come on. You can get it. There we go.
Phew, it stopped. Good. I was starting to get dizzy. Miss Tron, are you alright? I'm fine, just a little surprised is all. Come on, let's keep going.
And we're almost at the end. At the end of this very different looking hallway is going to be the door we need to use the door key on. Just beacon bomb it, and you are near the end of the mission.
Yay! Miss Tron, the door's locked. Should we use the room key to open it? Yes, use the key. I wonder what's inside. It's open!
All right, let's go.
Wait!
Huh? Who are you?
My name is Pearl. I'm looking for the Aurora Stones. Are you? Yes, we are too! Shh! Be quiet! She's kind of suspicious looking.
You bet we are.
I think one of them is inside this room, but
What? Inside here? Well then, what are we waiting for?
huh? Wait!
We're in trouble. It's a Reaverbot. It's a big one. I mean really big.
Can I finish now? I was going to tell you that it sounds like there might be a Reaverbot in there.
This guy is even dumber than he looks. Come on, you guys, let's go! Miss Tron, do we have to? What if it's a really big and scary Reaverbot? We don't like Reaverbots. What are you saying? We can't give up after coming this far! The treasure we've been looking for is in there. If you don't get it, I'll
on that Reaverbot by yourselves.
Also, real talk, this game's character designs, barring one, are absolutely amazing. I love every single
We're
one of
in
them.
trouble. There's no way we can beat that. Scared me out of my wits. I walked in and there it was, right in front of me. What should we do? I want the treasure, but it's not worth dying for.
And with that, now it's time for us to access the boss fight. And it's a pretty familiar looking one.
Look at the size of it! We can't beat that!
Don't give up yet! Think! Use your heads! Look, see those fire traps all over the floor? You can use those to beat it!
We're scared, Miss Tron!
Oh, be quiet! Stop whining! Go get that Reaverbot!
It's the Hanmuru doll from Legends 1 returning. It'll move towards you, slam its fists down, do an eye laser. You just need to shoot the fire traps with the beacon bomb when it's next to it, and then run away because it'll go into a rampage. Do that enough and it dies. With that said, there is a nice little trick you can do in that if you time yourself just right, you can set it on fire with the fire trap, but its rampage will activate the next switch you're near, causing it to damage itself even more. With that said, you need to be careful because the Finkel can't take much in terms of punishment, so be careful all the same in this fight. Thankfully, the servbots are immortal, so your weapons never run out of ammunition, just you can run out of death, or I guess run out of life and then get infinite death. Either way, easy boss, but interesting all the same. That's the thing I really like about these missions. Hey, they use that sound effect in Battle Network.
Did it! No! It's a giant refractor!
So this is an Aurora Stone. From the color and size, it's probably worth 50,000 Zenny. We'll have to keep looking. I bet there's even bigger and better stuff in here.
That's really pretty. Would you let me take care of that for you? Sure! Gee, thanks! That's nice of you!
What are you doing? Oh, what am I supposed to do with you? Don't give that to her. Put it away somewhere safe.
Yes, Miss Tron! I'm sorry, but we can't let you have it. It's all right. I was just, asking, that's all. Oh, this hat.
Well, it looks like you beat me to it this time, my little friends. But just you wait and see. I'll get the next one. Or my name isn't Dance.
He just never learns, does he? All right, we've got what we came for. Let's get back to the Gesellschaft.
Roger!
And that's the first of the RPG missions. They're tedious on the first playthroughs, but again, the servbots are adorable. You get some funny little character interactions. On the first playthrough, they're fine. You also get some decent Zenny from it, all things considered. Probably the least per individual mission out of all the main 4 types, but still worth it. And from my scouting, we got a relatively interesting item. We got tires. Whenever it comes to the appraisal shop from now on, I'm not going to be selling items like that, as those can be used to reduce development costs in the lab. We also got a new training room over in the gym, so we'll be checking that out in a moment, and it's different. Whereas the first one to raise the attack of a servbot was, since we covered attack and speed, I was working on something for brains, but I don't have enough myself, so I have to take servbots with you on missions if you want their brains rating to go up, Miss Tron. We'll take care of that later, number 38. Now that we have a training program to increase speed, I don't have to run all day. But that doesn't mean I'm goofing off, Miss Tron. So now we can use the training to raise the speed, and this is a very different but very fun minigame all the same. I'm still going to bring in number 1 in, as he's my most reliable sniper at the moment. Alright, so the way this minigame works is that it's partial memorization, partial quick reaction times. Each of the 20 servbots in line are going to give you a lunch they want, and you need to press the corresponding button combination to give it to them. A lunch is up in circle, B lunch is left in circle, C lunch is down in circle, D lunch is down right in circle. You can also give a curry rice with triangle or spaghetti with square, as you can see on the menu below. If you mess up, you'll lose time. If you mess up enough, the boss behind you gets angry and makes you lose more time. The further levels you get, the more servbots you have to serve within the 30-second-ish time span. This becomes very long. Later on in the game, this becomes a game of reactions and you being able to quickly recognize what they need much more quickly. It gets hard. In fact, I honestly say this is probably, for later levels, the hardest minigame in the game, at least in my experience. But it's fun all the same, and there's just something really adorable about it. In fact, I think the first footage I ever saw for the game was this minigame. And now, for winning, we get a speed up +1 for number 1. Which is going to come in handy in the next mission. With that said, let's head over to HQ and do our next scouting. Again, scouting, if you missed the last part, scouting is not mandatory to beat the game whatsoever. I did it early on in the game, last part rather, to get a particular item to help a servbot realize their special skill. But I'm just doing this at this point for extra money and anything like brain or attack cubes to help me get all my servbot stats to where I want them to be. With that, now it's time for the 4th type of mission. It's time for the free variety of mission. The goal of this mission is to find all the treasure buried inside the ruins. And that might look a little bit familiar to those who saw the start of part 1. Alright, let's get this mission meeting started. This is it. We're going to the Nakai ruins. We're going to try and find Diana's tear, right? That's right, but this is going to be harder than any other dig we've done. I mean, even Teasel wasn't going to try it alone. He took Bonne with him. Does that mean we're going to give up? No! We might not be able to get it on the first try, but we'll keep trying again and again until we get it. Still, we need to be careful and retreat if things get bad. If we run out of energy in the ruins, we'll lose everything we found, so be careful. Alright, let's go. Yes, Miss Tron. And now I'm going to select my servbots to bring in. Again, the ones I bring in this point are ones I just want the brains to raise, though you may have noticed Tron says we have to try this mission again and again. The reason this is called the free mission is it's the only one that you can revisit over and over again, even after you've beaten it, to get more and more Zenny. It's sort of not the free roam mission, but the closest thing to a proper dig from Mega Man Legends 1 and 2, so to speak, from the ruins. I'm just bringing in ones that I want to get some brains after this next mission, and yeah. Let's not mess around and get right on into the mission.
Miss Tron, come back here when you want to go back to the ghetto shack.
Welcome to the Nakai ruins. This is the only real set of ruins you explore in Tron Bonne. I'm gonna apologize for one thing really quick. When I'm test playing the game, the Nakai ruins runs at full frame rate, but for some reason when recording, I guess everything just together doesn't work too right and the game slows down a bit as a result. This is your standard room by room dig setting, really. You're taking out Reaver bots, getting Zenny along the way, opening chests to get items. There's a lot of important things in here. However, it is impossible to beat this place in one visit. The minimum amount of visits you need to beat this is 2. If you're new to the game, I'd recommend 3, honestly. As there's a lot of optional paths to get items, you just need to get another item in this dungeon from the first visit to outright access the later portions of it. But the Zenny you can get from this is the best Zenny in the game, technically speaking. If you do every room in it in order, on like the second or third visit after you have access to it all, you can get damn near 500,000 Zenny per. It is ridiculously good. And that's just from the Reaver bots, by the way. Also, these red/orange Hobble Rule Reaver bots are the strongest particular Reaver bots you're going to be finding in the game that aren't a boss fight from my memory. And they hurt. They'll maybe do about 1/3 of my health right now if I get touched by one of them, so be careful. the way I'm going to be handling a lot of the Nakai ruins this part, because we're clearing it this part, is whenever a room takes over 30 seconds to clear of its enemies, I'm just speeding it up, straight up. Also, those enemies are the weakest ones in here. Those are, I think, the Furry Fairies? Just log on with L2 and they'll go down in one shot. The Reaver bots can help slow down most of the enemies in here if you beacon bomb them. However, it's only worth doing that on the orange hobble rules, as it's the only things that are worth slowing down because they can move fast enough. With that said, this is one of my favorite parts of the game just because I dig... I really do like the Ruins exploration angle of the Legends series. It's something I wish Legends 2 had more of, honestly. As, yeah, you got the Salakuta ruins, you got the, I can't remember the water level's name, ruins, and you got the forest area's main ruins, but there wasn't enough side dungeons. It's kind of the weird inverse from Legends 1 to Legends 2, is you go from Legends 1 having, what, like technically 2 or 3 main areas, not counting the starting game, and they were usually really short, with a lot of side areas, to Legends 2 having like, what, 2 or 3 side areas you can only access if you did the higher license tests, and much more in-depth main dungeons. It makes me wonder if Legends 3 was going to try and do something kind of in between those two in this game, because this is the only main ruins, and it's relatively simple, but I appreciate its length. Now, if you're new to the game, this place can honestly kick your ass because you're not used to the tactics to take out a lot of the Reaver bots. For instance, these snake Reaver bots, I believe, are called Nakels. These also showed up on Salakata Island in Legends 2. They dig underground a lot and thus can take a while. However, I recommend not only slowing them down with the Reaver bots if you can, but aiming for the head by jumping and circle strafing, as I believe the head takes a bit more damage, or at least has less defense than the main body. And if you ever get, like, below half health, I'd recommend leaving on a first playthrough, because the likelihood of you dying here is surprisingly high once you get either towards the mini-bosses in here, or towards the more egregious sections on the eastern half. The main reason we're going through this first visit is to get that fireworks item and one other item at the end of this chain of hallways, as we can use those to develop more weapons to make the latter half of this area accessible and easier. It is kind of strange, though, because this is probably not the hardest the game gets, but definitely the most stressful for your health. But Misadventures of Tron, Bonne is probably, out of the Legends games that we have here in the East, or the West, rather, because there are a couple of other spin-offs that I think were, like, mobile only, and otherwise, like, visual novel type things in Japan. This is probably the easiest game out of the trilogy, so to speak. And the more I think about it, Legends 2 is probably the hardest, just given the combat, particularly the boss fights and some of the dungeons even. Legends 1's just kind of in the middle, because there's nothing too threatening outside of maybe the subgates and Bruno. Even Juno in Legends 1 isn't too hard. Also, most of the holes in here are going to have relatively small refractors. It's not going to help your Zenny out too much, but still, never say never. The biggest annoyance about this place, though, beyond the fact you have to visit it multiple times depending on your playstyle, is the Gustav moves a bit too slowly, I feel, for explorative areas. It works well for combat because you feel like a tanky little robot, but in exploration, it just doesn't feel right. If the Gustav had a boost button by pressing the circle button, which I don't recall it having at least, I wouldn't mind it as much, but nah, we're just kind of stuck walking around. Maybe it's due to the lack of general items to find or the low enemy variety. I just don't find this as engaging as the Legends 1 and 2 digs, though. Or sub-ruins, for that matter. With that said, the thing I like about this game is that you can play it entirely to what your tastes are. You can play this entirely as a puzzle game with the cargo sections. You can play it as a heist game with the heist stages. You can play it as a semi-exploration game with these areas. I don't know why you would want to do all of the RPG levels, quote-unquote, as your main playstyle, but you could. And that is really cool. With that said, now we meet our next enemy type. These are Zon spies, I think. Do not underestimate the spies. They hurt a lot despite their size, and it doesn't help that they don't exactly have much of a... the Gustav doesn't exactly have much knockback from them from getting hit, so you can easily get chained into them. And the mini-boss is just a big one that coughs up tinier ones. This thing has an obnoxious amount of health, but it's worth it for the reward that's behind it. And unlike the RPG levels, you can't exactly leave a room once you've entered it when there's Reaver bots inside. The doors, the eye on them that you can see in the background a moment ago, glows, and while the eye on the door is glowing, you can't go through it. So if you want to leave a room, you have to take out every Reaver bot inside of it, so make sure you have the supplies before moving forward. Again though, since you can do this place in multiple visits, if you're running low on HP and you know there might be a mini-boss ahead from this LP or otherwise, or by looking at a map, I think there's a map online, you can just go, leave, upgrade the Gustav using the lab, and come back and try again. I do appreciate the mechanics of this whole thing, I just find it's relatively uninteresting. It's kind of the, I think I'm using this term right, catch-22 rather, of Tron Bonne. There's some really cool stuff in Tron Bonne, but depending on your tastes, you might like only one or two of the playstyles within it. I like the heists and the puzzle sections just fine. The RPGs are boring, and I like parts of this gameplay segment. I just think it just comes across as kind of boring compared to Legends 1 and 2 digs. So I like, what, is that 2.5? It's a greater average than I like of the Sonic Adventure 1 or 2 gameplay styles. But in this room is our ultimate goal. In this chest is going to be another item we can use, or give to a servbot, to use for developing weapons. Also, this is where my Legends 1 and 2 is kicking in. I tried to open the chest with the goose stuff. We find the pipe. Now, something you should keep an eye on the map in the bottom right, by the way. There's no way to open up the mini-map to show the whole thing of it. You might notice to my right on the mini-map, there's a room that doesn't have any hallways connecting to it. There are certain rooms you can only access by blowing up the walls with a later item. So when I come back here in a few minutes, I'm going to be cutting back to this room to blow up this wall. With that, let's just cut on out of here, because we've finished everything I need to do on this first visit, really. If you try to head east, you can technically get to one other hole to get some extra Zenny, but I'm going to be able to make up that much Zenny just by beating up the extra Reaver bots that I'm going after on the second visit in here. With that said, the Nakai Ruins and the little desert around it does make an excellent testing ground for new weapons, or if you want to get used to the controls a bit more, just by switching around the options or something along those lines.
Miss Tron, do you want to go back to the ghetto shack?
Let's head back home, boys.
Roger!
And that's our first visit to Nakai Ruins. And just by going through about maybe a third or a half of it, we get a relatively decent profit of 117,000. That's not bad. And we did get not only 2 brain cubes, but those 2 pipes. But you may have noticed the brains of my servbots went up. Technically speaking, we didn't beat the dungeon, so there's no brain ups for those servbots. I think you can technically get it by also investigating holes enough or having the servbots do enough things, but I didn't, so it didn't. With that, now let's give 31 and 32 some items. We want to give number 31 the pipe. This is exactly what I've been looking for. It's just the right length and width to make the bazooka I've designed. Now all I need is enough Zenny to pay for the development costs. And we want to give number 32 the fireworks. I don't know how this thing works out, by the way. What's this? These fireworks are linked together so they go off sequentially. I can adapt this idea for use in building the Gatling gun I've designed. All I need now is enough Zenny to pay for the development costs. So now when we go into the development menu, we can now outright buy the Bonne bazooka and the Gatling gun. The next 2 weapons, I think the main 2 weapons really, for the Gustav beyond the starting gun. The Bonne bazooka is absolutely busted. Its shining laser levels of power from Legends 1 and 2. And I'm also developing some armor just because I want to get some HP, and also I want to build some energy tanks. Now, unlike the Mega Man Classic series, energy tanks are not energy bottles that can restore your HP for one use. They are your HP ups. So now my HP is maybe about 1.5 times what it was, maybe double. Super worth doing. And now I gotta do my scouting menu. The Gatling gun is going to be what I use for most of the game, just because I feel it's more fair to the game's difficulty. As the Bonne bazooka, Its power is maybe a little bit too high for its own good, and I'm only at attack level 3, by the way. Technically speaking, you can have attack level 4 and have it be even more powerful. With the current stats my sniper has, the Bonne bazooka can one-shot most Reaver bots and take out some of the more powerful ones in 2 to 4. And to switch weapons, you go to the Gustav menu. This is a surge cannon. It has a tracking function, making it easy to use. This is a bazooka. It's stronger than the cannon. You want power? Use this. Bazooka attached. Now, if it wasn't for the fact that I needed to use it for the Nakai Ruins, I probably wouldn't be using this anyway, just like... Well, actually, no, I did use the Shining Laser in Legends 1 and 2, didn't I? I wouldn't be using it as much, as I feel it makes the game a bit too easy for its own good, honestly. But I need to use it in the Nakai Ruins, so we're gonna. And one-shotted, one-shotted, one-shotted. The orange-red variations of this that I talked about earlier that are one of the most powerful enemies in the game get taken out of these by the Bonne bazooka in about 4 shots, so that is pretty powerful. The Antlion mini-boss, the giant Zantspy, gets taken out in about 5 shots. It's ridiculously fast. With that, we can now use the Bonne bazooka for its main purpose. You might remember I said we can blow up walls with a certain item. The Bonne bazooka is that very thing. You see a cracked wall, shoot 2 Bonne bazookas at it, and there you go. There's also at least 1 or 2 walls where they're not marked, but you can still blow them up. More on that later. And I came back over towards the first section to get that attack cube. Now we're going back to the first section of the dungeon, as now we can progress further east and get some more items. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the Nakai Ruins is not randomly generated. Its layout is set every playthrough. It's always going to be this exact way. And because of that, our end goal is always in the same place. The Diana's tier we're looking for and that Teasel wanted to get is always near the top right of the dungeon, so to speak. 1, 2, 3, dead. This thing is absurd. The damage it does to boss fights, especially, is just radically overpowered. I have done playthroughs where I don't use this. I have done playthroughs where I only use it for what's necessary. I have done playthroughs where I've only used this. All of them fun in their own rights. With that said, it is ridiculously broken. For comparison, in the last part, during the heist missions, this thing can, the Bonne bazooka can usually take out most buildings in 1 shot. It is that powerful. The one drawback with the Bonne bazooka is that you can't strafe while using it. You're locked to the floor while you're firing. The only way you can strafe while firing with it is by jumping, which is very useful against these things as they start to gang up on you after a while. But at the same time, you can just tank the damage if you have enough energy bottles, and you just made some development costs for that, which is another viable strategy. Just go in here, grind up some Zenny, get some energy bottles, and then face tank the damage while you face tank them dying. Also, we got 2 chests in this room. They're very clever about hiding this last one right out of view. But this is one of the most important chests in the game to get, as within it, once the servbots climb up there, we're going to get an item known as an ancient pistol. We're going to be giving that to another servbot to make them into the best sniper in the game, so our Gustav can be that much more powerful. But we won't be doing that until at least the next part, I believe. Oh, also, I forget if I mentioned this, but if you die in these missions, it's not a proper game over. You just sent back to the Gessel shaft with everything you've collected wiped from your inventory, essentially. Now, one thing I've never measured for this game is the amount of Zenny you get versus the time it takes to get it per mission. I want to say, just based off the simplicity of this mission type, that you can easily get the most Zenny the quickest just by playing this mission over and over again. But I forget exactly how much the later RPG cargo missions and heist missions will give you. I think what would have been cool for this game is if they decided to make multiple dungeons like this that were just increasing in size and just completely skip the RPG missions, as I feel like the extra dungeons just could have made this whole thing much more interesting. Another little thing with the Bonne bazooka is that I think it does more damage either the longer the enemies in the explosion radius or the closer to the center they are, as hitting an enemy directly with it definitely does more damage than them just walking into the explosion splash damage. So if you need to be accurate, make sure you're accurate. Also, this is like the one chest you don't need to shoot directly with the beacon bomb. Once you shoot the servbots in there, they just go and grab it and we get an iron plate. We'll be using that later. In fact, we're going to be using a lot of items in here later, even beyond the items we've already gotten. As most of the items in here, when they're not Zenny, are either going to be, I believe, brain cubes or items to use to give to servbots / development. There is at least 1 or 2 holes I think I don't have my servbots investigate, and I think one of them is even on screen in a few minutes. I just completely miss it because I'm more focused on the door that's in front of me, which sounds a lot like me. Ultimately, though, the Reaver bots give me more than enough Zenny to make up for it. Also, I completely skipped my mind to say this until now in the video. But yeah, this video is for 260 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. I know I say it every time, but every subscriber we get, I did not ever expect to get, and I'm very thankful for you guys subscribing and sticking around. It's really nice. The reason I forgot to bring this up earlier, RPG system / missions, a lot of dialogue, had to focus on those mechanics. Plus, I'm easily distracted. It's like I have ADHD or something. The Nakels are easily the worst enemy to fight with the Bonne bazooka, but they're also one of the easiest, as if you can get a solid jump shot off on them, they'll die in like 1 or 2 shots, and they won't get a chance to burrow again. But if you miss, they're still so tedious. And if you don't jump, they're still so hard to hit, because the Bonne bazooka is slow. You always know, by the way, that you found a room with a chest in it when you get this very bronzish gold color scheme. Any other room that's blue or brown is just a standard room with a desert floor. Also, a really nice attention to detail in this game is that if you press the pause button, you'll actually see whatever Tron's doing at that moment. For instance, in the Gustav, she's usually balancing like a pencil on her upper lip while a servbot's controlling it. When she's on the Finkel, she's looking at a computer, sort of. I forget what she's doing during the other 2 missions. Also, we got a rusted tank there. That'll come in handy later. That is the one cracked wall, I think, that's not actively, visibly cracked. You need to know that's there and just experiment around with shooting with the Bonne bazooka until you get it, really. Also, I don't get this room. Most of the big rooms in the Nakai ruins have 2 or 3 Reaver bots in it, just to give you something to fight. But that room is entirely empty. Also, the speed up themes for while we're fighting the Reaver bots, and I don't want to eat up too much time. The first one was the main gate theme from Legends 1. And that theme there is Dr. Wily's Stage 1 from Mega Man 7. That does remind me, there was one detail I forgot to point out in the cargo stations, and I'll point this out next month when we get there. Random tree, by the way. The boat you use while on the cargo missions to put the crates into, that is one of Wily's boats from the Wily Boatyard at Cadillacs Island. I don't know why, because we're probably way far away from Cadillacs Island right now. But I'll take it, because I like that side quest. I like Cadillacs Island a lot. I'm gonna chuck this tree at the first thing I see. Another minor annoying thing that can become a major annoying thing depending on who you choose to bring along with you servbot-wise is that the speed of the servbots is determined by their speed stat, of course, and that includes their walking speed, or how fast they find items in holes. And the annoying thing is, once you clear a room, the doors open up and you can go from room to room without going through the room transitions, as you may have noticed if you're playing along. But it's very possible for servbots to get stuck in certain corners and you have to backtrack to grab them. If you leave, they'll come with you, don't get me wrong. It's impossible to lose a servbot in this game. But for when you're exploring through, sometimes it takes them way too long to catch up, or sometimes they just get stuck and then going back to get them can be tedious. It's just kind of annoying. It's not that big a problem, admittedly, especially given this is the only mission type where that really happens. Because the Finkel in the RPG set moves slow enough that they can keep up no problem. In the cargo missions, you only have one servbot, and usually you're multitasking anyway, and they'll catch up to you eventually. And in the heist missions, it can come into play a little bit, but this is the only mission type where it becomes that big a problem. Also, we got a pool here that contains a lot of red refractors. 18 to be precise, which is a lot of money. If you're paying attention in the first mission when I raided that one hole with Teasel, and I got 6 of these, it was 30,000? we just got about 90,000 Zenny from that alone. I'm also jump cutting back to this area. And I think this is where I actually miss a hole a bit further north on this wall. Actually, yeah, you can see it right there on the top left of the screen. My bad. It doesn't have anything major, though. None of them really do in this dungeon. And once we head north, we're on the final trek. We're almost done with this place. It's very quick to clear out, but very worth your money. Well, it's not like you're really putting any money into doing this. You technically do any mission in this game for free, but you know what I mean. Just make sure you bring in some energy bottles. I'd say maybe at least one energy bottle 1 and one energy bottle 2, maybe 2 energy bottle 1s for that matter. Because the enemies, particularly the orange Harabuls, can really mess you up if you're too slow or distracted by other enemies in the area, like a Nakal or a Fairy Furry. Reaverbot names are weird, by the way. They're a weird mix of Japanese, German, I think there's some French in at least one of them later on. They're odd names. Not the same mechanoid names in, like, the Classic or X series or ZX series for that matter aren't weird too, but these are distinctly different than the others, and I have a feeling that's just due to the very different setup than the Classic series. Plus, I forget, did Inafune direct these, or did he just sign off on them being a thing and be, okay, I'll help produce them? I actively can't remember. The odd thing about the Zanspies as well, there's multiple sizes, but I don't think it really influences anything about them because I think they all drop around the same amount of Zenny. By that I mean they can drop either a purple or a blue, which I think are the least and second least worth of all of them. But just to show the power of the Bonne Bazooka, you might remember the first time we fought a giant Zanspie mini-boss, it took about, what, a minute, 2 minutes to take out? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, dead. So much faster. The Bonne Bazooka is absurd. It makes me wonder if that's the reason why they gave the boss of this dungeon as much HP as they did, because you're more than likely to come in here with the Bonne Bazooka to fight it. Or even maybe that's why they gave the final boss, when we get to him, as much HP as they did, because, oh boy, that's a big health bar. More on that in couple parts. I actually don't know how long this LP is going to be. Because this is both the shortest Mega Man Legends game, but could also be the longest depending on how you play the game, what styles you do. This game has a lot of variables in it depending on your play style. With that though, boss time. This is Hippelbosch. This boss doesn't actually have many active attacks. It's completely invincible to damage, though, from the outside. We need to hit the inside. The way you do that, beacon bomb its nose once the children get out of the way that are jumping. And you want to beacon bomb the nose so that the servbots can clog its nostrils and open up its mouth. Shoot the bazooka into the mouth to do damage. Its only other attacks are when it opens its mouth, it'll shoot 2 missiles out in kind of a V shape that sometimes hit you if you're on these legs, sometimes not. And I think technically the babies can shoot out the bubbles, which can trap the servbots, of course. But the hands will occasionally shoot out 5 to 6 homing mines. And they alternate right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand. So when you're not beacon bombing the nose or shooting the mouth, keep your eye on the hands and shoot the left and right one when they spawn bombs, just to reduce any problems that could happen to you. It's a surprisingly easy boss fight. But I really like the concept of it all the same. I actually like it than more than some of the boss fights in Legends 2. Which, up until this point, really had the best boss fights in the series. I say realizing this came out, I think, before Legends 2 by about a month or two, because I think the US release came with a demo disc for Legends 2 that had some exclusive missions, or some noticeable differences in areas like the Tron boss fight on the first major island. Things of that nature, really. I can think of at least one LP of this game that showed that off as like a bonus episode, and obviously there's probably videos of it on its own out there somewhere. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if Get Me Off the Moon, the former 1 Million Strong for Legends 3 crew, I would not be surprised if they also did like a stream with the demo disc at some point just to show it off. The Legends fandom is relatively small compared to other Mega Man fandoms, and that's a bit odd given that Mega Man is a famous series, but its numbers aren't really there because there's only, I think, now 6 or 7 games that have crossed 1 million units. But the Legends fandom is probably, like, if not the most dedicated, the second most, maybe next to Battle Network, as they put their information down in droves. With that said, Hippobash, not a very hard boss fight. You can take some damage pretty quickly, but you can also do some damage to it really quickly if you bring in the right weapon. The babies are more annoying than the main boss itself just because they can block your shots so often. Slow down, doo-doo, boss exploding.
Mission clear! All right, let's get back to the castle shaft. Yes, Miss Tron!
And that's the Nakai Ruins. We never need to return there, but if you want more easy Zenny just by taking out the Reaper bots, you can at your own leisure. You can go back to as many times as you want. And we got almost 600,000 Zenny alone from that. Dear God. That more than makes up for the costs for the Bomb Bazooka, and the Diana's tier sells for an extra $1 million. This place is great for money. It's absurd. And that means with 1 million Zenny, we can now go and pay back Teasel's loan and get him and Bonne back from whoever Mr. Loth is. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys so much for subscribing and getting us up to 260 subscribers. It really means a lot to me. And in part 3, whenever that happens, we're going to go get our brothers back and I guess finish off the game. What do you mean? This LP is probably going to be at least 4 parts long. Oh. See you guys then.